Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of Parenthood Spotlight. This is a space where we slow down just a little, where we listen more closely. Each month, we bring you a story of a parent whose journey expands what we think is possible for ourselves and for our children. My guest today is Chopra-McGowan, writer, activist, and co founder of the Latika Roy Foundation. Joe's journey began not with an organization, but with a child, a daughter, a decision. An American by birth, Jo moved to India in the early 1980s, and her life took a profound turn when she adopted a baby girl, Moy Moy, with complex disabilities, a child who would go on to reshape not just her life, but the lives of hundreds of children and families. What began as a mother trying to find support for her own child slowly grew into something much larger, a community, a space, a movement for dignity, inclusion, and care. Joe, thank you for being here. It feels like such a privilege to listen to your story today.
Thank you for having me. Seems like we've been trying to get this to happen for a long time. And thank you for your patience with my
My
being so
pleasure.
busy. Things
My
have
pleasure.
finally settled down a bit.
Yeah. I'd love to begin a little before motherhood for you, before Latika, before India even. Who were you, Joe, in those earlier years? What were the things that moved you, shaped you, perhaps unsettled you?
Hmm. Well, I grew up in Massachusetts in a smallish city. We thought it was a big city until I came to India. It's about 100,000 people, and we thought it was a pretty big city. It's more like a village here. Um, I was born into a very large Catholic family. My parents, very strong Catholics, but not the typical type. They were more activist types themselves. They constantly opening our home to all kinds of people who were in need. And I grew up in that kind of an environment. There were seven of us. One of my sisters is adopted, and my grandparents, three grandparents lived with us until they died. Um, we had, all kinds of people that my parents would just take in. One of my favorite stories was when a neighbor that I had never even met, but my parents knew him, lived about 7 blocks away from us. Elderly man, and his house burned down. And he was standing on the sidewalk. The firefighters were there, and all the people around had come, and the firefighters put the fire out, and then they said, "Mr. Law, where would you like us to take you?" I said, "I don't know. I have nowhere to go." And somebody said from the crowd, "Take him to the McGowans. They take everybody." And that was true. He came, he lived with us for 2 years. And,
Wow.
yeah, and we were a big family and a big house, but with 7 children and grandparents, the rooms were not enough. So one whole room had to be given to Mr. Law. And so that was one less for us, but we were also used to that. That was kind of the way we were brought up. And so I have dozens of such stories of my parents and their generosity. So that's what I grew up with. Um, their political leanings obviously influenced me a lot. Um, they believed in justice, they believed in rights for workers, for prison reform, for peace. And my mother was there at Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. She had just had a baby. The baby was still nursing, but she left the baby with my father and the rest of us and went down to Washington, D.C. on a bus, just because she knew this was a moment in history and she didn't want to miss it. So that's the kind of milieu that I grew up in. And I think that feeling that if something is wrong, you have to do something about it. You have to
Yeah.
step up.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was very impulsive and very thoughtless in many ways. I was 18 when I dropped out of college and went on this walk. And it was a walk for social justice and disarmament. And it was from Boston to Washington. And there was another walk coming from Philadelphia to New York for democracy in India. And that's how I met my husband. And my parents were just like, what are you doing? You don't know this guy. What are you thinking? And that was actually the hallmark of my way of being in those days. I didn't think, I just did things and then lived with whatever decision I had made.
Yeah. And you've lived a life of activism, of standing up for what you believed in, even when it came at a cost. Do you ever look back now and see a thread connecting that younger version of you to the work you would one day do with children?
Sorry, there's a lot of construction still going on in our building.
No
If this
problem.
is quieter, this it won't be a problem.
No, no problem at all. I can't hear the construction noise.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, yes, I definitely do see a link. I think my son once described me and my husband as, they're these really strange people. Whenever they see something happening, they feel like they have to be the ones who solve it. And that it's kind of an arrogance in a way. I sometimes wish I didn't have that problem because,
Mhm.
I see somebody being mean to a child or yelling at a staff member. I just feel like, how can you do that? And I have to step in. And it is a problem. I
Mm.
think sometimes you have to know your limits and it's not your business. Just relax. But it has brought me to the place where I am now and having the courage to do something like open a school for Moy Moy. Um, but I definitely trace that back, that it's the kind of thing that my parents would have automatically thought of.
Yeah, yeah. And talking of Moy Moy, can you take us back to that time when you first heard about her?
Yeah. So Ravi and I had two homemade children, and we always wanted to adopt. And we had a boy and we had a girl, and the laws about adoption in India at that time were really strange. They were, one of the things that was clear was that if you had a girl and you had a boy, you couldn't adopt. There was no purpose to it. So everybody understands that if you want a son and you don't have one. They understand kind of if you want a daughter and you don't have one. But to us, every agency we went to, they said, what's your problem? You've got a girl, you've got a boy, family complete, ho gaya, chill. And we just like kids. We would like at least one. I actually thought I would have four or five, but I thought at least one. And we couldn't get a baby anywhere. So we had been trying for a couple of years and almost given up. And then my sister and her husband had come to India to volunteer at hospital. They were both in medical school at the time. And it was their very first day in the hospital. And the woman who my sister was working with, she was an obstetrician. And she just mentioned casually at lunch that she had this baby that she had to find a home for. And Mary said, oh, my sister will adopt her. She's been wanting to adopt a baby. And so she said, really? Well, maybe you should ask her. So Mary came home and she said, you want to adopt a baby? And I said, yes. And Ravi was traveling at the time. And the next day I went in with them thinking I'll bring the baby home. And Dr. Cullen, her name was, she said, what does Ravi think about this? And I said, oh, he doesn't know he's traveling, but he'll be thrilled. We've been wanting to adopt. She said, you American women, I don't know what is wrong with you. You have to talk to your husband first. You see if he's as thrilled as you think he's going to be. And so she made me wait. Ravi came back. We had our discussion. He wasn't thrilled about it. It was a bad time for him. Very, very busy working on dams in Bihar. But he said, okay, but you will be in charge. I don't have the time right now to take on a baby. So I went with that understanding that he would not be participating in the early stages at least. So brought her home, and that was it, and we just took it from there. She was absolutely minute. She weighed under a kilo. She had
Wow.
been born 12 weeks premature. She was just like a little bird. Her bones, her arms were like that. It was just, it was really amazing. When I look back at the pictures of the baby that I thought was absolutely beautiful, I see this beaky little scrawny chicken. And what did I see in this? But I was gone. I was so in love with her. And we really had to work hard for the first few months to get her. She was drinking this much milk, but she was a survivor. Babies at that age often don't even have the sucking reflex yet. You have to, with the dropper, you have to feed them. But she was tough. She was a mountain girl, and she was going to survive. So we got through those first few months. She began to recognize us, to smile, to giggle. And we thought, all our fears that she might have a disability, we weren't worried anymore because she
Mm.
was developing so well. She was a little late with everything, but our pediatrician said she will be late with everything because she's still not the age you think she is.
Yeah.
You think she's 4 months old, but she's actually 1 month old. So you don't expect her to do what a 4 month old is doing. But she soon began meeting milestones, and she was a little slow to talk, little slow to walk, but like we were thrilled. She was doing very well. She had a sense of humor. She was witty. She just a delightful child. So we thought that we would put her in the same school that Anna and Kathleen went to. And when they took her, but then within about 6 weeks, they said, Tamara bus coming here, you take her
Mm.
somewhere else. And I was like, what's wrong with you? And she's so cute. But then when she came home, I did begin to realize that something had changed. And I thought maybe it was the pressure of going to school that she wasn't ready for it. But she seemed to be slowing down. She seemed to have trouble with words now. She was making small sentences, and now she was not really able to do that. She began to be a little clumsier walking, and everything kind of pointed to something happening inside that we were not aware of. Um, Finally, I took her to Boston. I went home
Yeah.
to meet my family, and I took Moy Moy to a very, like, an absolutely wonderful developmental pediatrician that my sister-in-law worked with. And he said, yeah, she had cerebral palsy, and that she had some kind of a regression as well, where she had been developing well, and he wasn't sure what that was about. He wanted to see her again the next time we came. And the next time we came, it was even more pronounced. And
Mm.
by then she had started having seizures. Ultimately, she lost all her skills. By the time she was about 10, she had become completely nonverbal. She was unable to walk. She had to use a wheelchair. And when she was about 16, we finally had to put a tube in her tummy because she was getting so skinny that she looked like almost back to how she was when we got her. She was just a matchstick. And so once we put the tube in, she began to gain weight. She was a little bit better, but never gained those skills again. And that's just what her story was like.
Yeah. Yeah. And in your journey of parenting her, were there moments early on when you felt maybe afraid of not just of what lay ahead, but of whether you would be enough for what she needed?
I never felt afraid in that sense. I felt like she was so dearly loved, and I thought she'll be fine and we'll be fine. later, as she got even older, what I started to be afraid of was the future. What, every parent who has a disabled child feels that, what are we going to do? Who's going to take care of her? And I could see Anand and Kathleen were 100% committed, and they always told us that we will be there, we will take care of her. But as I saw the way the world was turning, the kind of rejection of immigrants, and both of them, I knew they were going to end up elsewhere. They were going to stay in India. And I look now, if Moy Moy were still alive, what would we be doing? Like, there's no way that Donald Trump would welcome Moy Moy into the United States. She's not an American citizen. She was an Indian. Siblings have no rights. England, where my son is the same way. So then we started thinking about the community and how that would have to be what we galvanized in the same way that we created a community, a circle for Moy Moy when she was born, and when the school wouldn't take her and we knew we had to start something else. We created this circle. And so I was thinking, that was what I was going to have to do next. But the fear was really, really strong, though I had 100% confidence in the people around us, the Moy Moy circle that we called it, these people who loved her, who knew her since she was a baby. There's still this, it's like some kind of primitive fear that you feel that nobody can be for Moy Moy what we are.
Yeah.
And yet when I think about that now from this vantage point, I realize how silly that was, because I was not her birth mother either. And I was devoted to her. My whole life was built around her in many ways. And why couldn't someone else do that when we were no more? And I know these people who we work with, that, that's what we built the school on, is the people who started with Moy Moy. We called her the training academy. If she improved one of the caregivers, we would give them a job at Latika. And so I've started thinking in a different way about the possibility of a community around a child. And I think that's kind of my next mission, is to try and help families who are in the situation we would have been in if Moy Moy had continued to live, to trust that there are good people, and there are people who will love your kid the way you do. And I am living proof of it, because I'm that one. I loved Moy Moy, who was not my birth child. So anyway, that's a long story.
Yeah, yeah, but it's a very interesting one. And you talk about community, I want to talk about how did Latika actually came into existence? Was it a decision, or did it feel like something that grew because it had to?
Yeah, it was very organic. When Moy Moy was about 5, and Anand was what? I think Anand was 11 and Kathleen was 8. And Ravi and I at that point were quite sad about the life after school that our children had. They would come home and then there'd be no other child outside. We lived in Dehradun, nice, idyllic at that time, no longer that way. But we had a garden, we had trees to climb, we had a sandbox, we had all these play equipments, and it was so weird that other children weren't coming. They were all going to tuitions. And we thought, this is not how childhood should be. So we were thinking already, we should start something for our kids, some kind of after school program, a club, a place where maybe parents, if they see it's organized, it's not just random, kids running out in the street the way they used to, but it's got some purpose to it. Maybe they'll send their kids. And right about that time, a very close friend's mother had passed away. And he didn't live in Dehradun, but his parents did. And when she died, her husband came to us because he knew Ravi. He and his son were good friends, and said, I want to do something in memory of my wife. And she was a very creative person. She had started the first Montessori school in the country. She trained with Maria Montessori herself. Very artistic. She was a sculptor, she was a painter. She was amazing. So he wanted some kind of creativity center. So we thought this is perfect. We want to do it anyway for our kids, and he wants to support it. So he gave us 2 lakhs, and we began with that. And he paid the rent of the house that we rented, and gave us the use of a van. And so we just opened Latika Vihar, which was named after her. And it's still going. It's the first and the longest lasting of all our centers. It's an inclusive club. And we didn't mean it to be inclusive. We weren't thinking, in that time, we really didn't think Moy Moy had a disability. We thought she was just a little slow, just Moy Moy.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about disability at that point. And so we started, we had all kinds of older people as volunteers. We had students who would come and volunteer. We ran it on a shoestring. We only had 2 people who were paid, and it was part-time, so it was very low maintenance. We got lots of toys donated from my family. And in those days, you could bring extra boxes on the plane if you had a good enough story, and they wouldn't charge you. And I used to bring, one time I brought 6 big crates of toys
Wow.
from my brothers and sisters and their kids. And they didn't charge me for it. Those were
Wow.
the days. I said, I want this place in Dehradun. And they go, oh, how nice. Go ahead. So it was really nice. It was, little chairs and tables. We had a cute library and a big toy room and outdoor equipment. And so it was perfect. It was just what we wanted. And at that was the same time that we put Moy Moy in the school, and they rejected her. And then I thought, well, we're running this only in the afternoon, and we should do something in the morning, and we could start a school for Moy Moy. And so that's how I began the school. And it was hard going in the beginning. We didn't know anything at all. We got a volunteer from the UK who came to India as a volunteer with Voluntary Service Overseas. It's a British organization. They paid her travel, and they paid her. We had to pay a small salary, and they supplemented it. And she came 2 years, and she ended up staying for 12.
Wow.
She was a pivotal person in our growth, in our foundational beliefs. She's the person who really, really insisted that every single staff member had something important to contribute. So the driver, the chowkidar, the gardener, every single one of them, she involved in the work. And she didn't speak a word of Hindi. She just had such a positive vibe and such a commitment to recognizing the value of every person. And that has stayed with us. That is the most important thing we do at Latika. It's really about the staff. It's amazing how, when you value your team, what a difference it makes to the work. And that's the message we're sending to society, that everybody's important, whether they're disabled, whether they're poor, whether they speak English, whether they have a college degree, it doesn't matter. They're all capable and eager to do something important. So that's the kind of foundation of how Latika operates.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just thinking about, your spearheading something where you didn't have a blueprint of, how it should go. So were there moments when you felt completely unsure of the path ahead?
I still feel that way. It's an ongoing thing. I mean, nothing is certain in life. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But I do have this huge faith and confidence in the people around us. And I think that together we can do almost anything. It's the confidence, and it's the belief that whatever we need to do, it will be done. And it's not that people are not qualified. I mean, now we have a really good team. We've learned so much about how to run an organization and how to keep things afloat, how to get the money in, how to promote the work that we do. But even then, when we knew nothing, we all had that desire and that passion for the work. So we're a tiny little team. There were only four, 5 paid staff at that time. I didn't get a salary for many years. And we were like just a little cohort of believers, and we made the best of whatever was going on. We learned so much from the children. We only had one qualified special educator. We had one Montessori teacher. We had one young girl who she was only, I think she was 17 when she started with us, and she's still with us.
Wow.
That's 32 years later. Shivani is like a stalwart. She's become a special educator. But we didn't know about therapists. We didn't know about, I knew about cerebral palsy because of Moy Moy, and I knew about Down syndrome because I'm Catholic. A lot of Catholic families have Down syndrome kids. I used to babysit for some children who had Down syndrome. But like we were so clueless. And then out of the blue, this woman arrived who was a developmental pediatrician. She was married to an Indian, and she wanted to work with us. So she kind of took the lead in all the medical aspects, the things that we were completely clueless about. She said, we need a physiotherapist, we need an occupational therapist, we need a speech therapist. So that's what we started building the team. The education Paula was taken care of because that was her field. And it just kind of, everything kept falling into place, and the right people came at the right time. The money came just when we were constantly like this far away from not being able to meet the payroll, not being able to pay the rent, and something would happen. Like miracles constantly were happening. Sometimes to the exact rupee. I mean, it was just crazy how money would arrive. And, we always love to attribute it all to Moy Moy, that she was our magic wand, our ticket, we gave her all the credit. But there was a lot of hard work involved in it too. And we have to keep, I think just because we were able to keep going, people saw that, and people could see how genuine it was, how much we cared about what we were doing. And so we just kept growing. And I see other friends who have started NGOs, and there's so much more structured and planned, and they have it all in there. Like they do it so differently than we did it. And their organizations are brilliant, and they're doing such fabulous work. And I often think, why did I do that? Why didn't I know what we were doing? And I had no clue. Really, I never expected it to be like this. I mean, if you could see this building that we're in now, in my wildest dreams, I could not have imagined that we would be able to do this, or that we would even think of it. But here we are, and we have done it. It's just like a miracle to me, because I am so clueless and so I mean, that impulsivity that I had that made me marry Ravi, adopt the baby, it's still with me. Make crazy decisions, and then my team have to catch up and
Yeah.
okay, we're doing that. All right, here we go. And then they work it out, and they're very practical people. They really get down to systems and put things in place. So maybe it's just that alchemy of those two forces, one totally impractical dreamer type, and the others are, let's get it done. And the combination has worked for all this time. So we're really, really lucky.
Yeah, yeah. And from outside to me, an outsider, when I hear about Latika, when I hear you talk about Latika, it seems to me like not just an organization, but also like a philosophy itself of care. And so,
Yeah.
what does it mean to you in context of especially disability and also generally childhood? This concept of care, of dignity, what does it mean?
Mm. That is the underpinning of everything that we do. And I think it goes back in my case. I mean, everybody has their own story of why this appeals to them, why this is the place they want to be working. And I won't speak for them, but I'm saying for myself that I think it goes back to my parents and the way that I was brought up and the way I saw my parents living it, the inherent worth of every single human being and the responsibilities that we have as human beings who were born lucky. You know, we were born into an education, to a family that could afford us, to, could take good care. And there are so many people who don't have that luck. And it's sheer luck. It's
Yeah,
not hard work or, I got here because of myself. It doesn't work like that. We know. I mean, I see so many people who are such brilliant souls and they're living on the street, or they're like this far away from a catastrophe in their families because they have no backup. It's just so unfair. So I think um, that understanding that we were just fortunate and we have to do something for other people. That's part of being fortunate, that you
yeah,
can't just keep enjoying it yourself. I think that is what it means to me. And but beyond that is it's just so much more fun. I really, really enjoy the people that I work with, the parents that we meet. The the reactions that parents have had to this building, for example, it made me want to cry. The things like saying, one of the mothers said to me on the first day when she walked in, she said, she had tears in her eyes. She said, I can't believe that anybody thinks our kids are worth this building, that you made it for them. And it just, she said, nobody cares about our kids. And it was so, oh, just, I know exactly what she means, because that's how people looked at Moy Moy. They just, they'd look at me and they'd say, oh, sad, Bichara, and all this stuff. And I just think, you have missed it. You have missed the boat. You don't know what this kid is about. You don't, I mean, she is the inspiration for all of this. We would never have done this if it hadn't been
yeah.
for Moy Moy. And how dare you put your stupid value system on her? She's more productive than anybody I've seen in your family. It's just like, who do you think you are? She has created this revolution in Dehradun,
Yeah,
and we've learned so much from our kids. They're so vibrant and funny and witty, and you just have to be with them. And I'm not like romanticizing it either. I know how difficult it is. You've got all kinds of struggles with our kids that you don't have with typical children. But you have other struggles with typical children that you don't have with our kids.
yeah,
You don't have, none of our kids are drug users. None of our kids are like demanding that their parents do more than they can. They're just kids. They're really, but I'm not romanticizing them. They can have their meltdowns and their temper tantrums, and some of them can be very, very hard for families to handle. But I do know that when you bring a structure to a child's life, when you understand that behavior is communication, like you can change all of that. There are so many things that are possible. You have to understand what the kid is living with, what the kid is going through. Kids with autism, for example, they don't experience the world the way I do. And
Yeah.
if I try and put them in a world that doesn't work for them, it's like putting me in an igloo with no clothes on. You know, I'm not going to survive in that. I'm going to freak out. And yet we do that to children all the time. We just think, all the other kids are managing, what's wrong with you? And not understanding that for them, these things are assaults, the noise, like right now, these noises, I'm really worried about what our kids are going through in the classrooms. It's horrific, the sounds, and for a child with a lot of hearing issues and, you know, they need a quiet environment. This is like torture.
Yeah.
And when we understand that and we create an environment, which is what we've tried to do in the building, these people will be gone eventually and they'll stop making all this noise. But the building is designed in a way that accommodates all kinds of needs. So we have like 4 quiet rooms in the building where people can go as a refuge if it's just normal noise is too much for them. They have an option. And it's not just our kids. Sometimes we need it too.
Yeah.
Just it gets to be too much. We've designed the hallways so they're wide enough for any number of wheelchairs to go up and down because kids are friends with each other in wheelchairs, and why should they have to go in a straight line?
Yeah.
And the kitchen is designed in a way that a wheelchair can go right underneath the counter. And
Wow.
so the person in the wheelchair can work at because they are also eager to participate and to be part of what's going on. So all these kinds of things the world can do. It's not that this is new or any kind of extremely rare or esoteric technology. It's just mindfulness. It's just being thoughtful and following the National Building Code. All the things that we've done are part of the code. We didn't do anything extraordinary. Our extraordinary part is all the art that we've put all over the place. Quirky things that are part of the building because it would be more fun. But like the ramp is required. And our ramp is stunning. It's the most beautiful, you have to come and see it. It's just the most beautiful piece of architecture you could imagine. But you could make an ordinary ramp. You don't have to have it be like this. But it's when people see the accommodations as accommodations rather than this is just a good building. This is what a building should be like.
Yeah.
And we have built everything we build for ourselves, for our bodies, for our temperaments, for our, and when I say our, I mean the norm, the so-called norm. And then we rework them to make it work for us. So somebody built the house that I live in, and they built it according to standards that, normal people are this tall. And then we move in and we change it all, right? That's what everybody does that. When you move into a new flat, you make it work for you. And that's just what we are saying the whole world should be like, that it should work for everybody. It can't be that only sighted people can walk down the street safely, or that only people who can actually walk can get from point A to point B, or that only people with normal intelligence can understand signage. Or why can't everybody? We know how to do that. And that is what, like the building is a kind of demonstration of what we believe, that this is a place where you will be inspired because anybody you bring here will be happy and will be comfortable, whether they're an elderly person, whether they are pregnant, whether they're a parent with a very small toddler, whether they're a child. All these people are accommodated in our building. And that's our vision of the world, that we make a world that works for everybody. And, and if you're having a hard day, you've got the quiet rooms, you've got the field where you can run around, get the energy out. We've got the ramp where you can walk. You can take your morning walk on our ramp. And that's the kind of vision we have for the world.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're talking like that, Joe, I'm so inspired. But also, I'm thinking that, in a building, inclusion can be built because it's a building. But how do you build inclusion in everyday life in the world? How do you do
Yeah.
that?
Well, I think these kinds of architectural innovations, they are innovations,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but that beginning, that's like when you start to make a building that works for everybody, everybody comes. Now
Mm.
we don't know how to live with each other because we don't see disabled
Yeah.
people. When I
Yeah.
tell people 15% of the population has a disability, they go, "Really?
Mm.
15%? But
Mm.
that's a lot of people." I say, "Yeah, it is a lot of people." He says, "I never see them." I say, "No. Why do you think that is?" And try and help them move beyond their own limited way of thinking, that because I don't see them, they must not exist. The census says 2%. Why does the census say 2%? Because people are ashamed to admit that they have a disabled person in the family, because they have accommodated so well that they don't think of the person as disabled, which is great, but you need the count. You need to be aware of how many people. This is a huge demographic, and we're missing out on it economically. We're missing out on all of the gifts that disabled people bring to the world. So I think beginning with architecture, beginning with streets, beginning with the public spaces, if we could make those actually accessible for everybody, not specially need, specially
Yeah.
able people, no, everybody. Like I am having trouble now going for a regular walk in my neighborhood because the rubble everywhere is too treacherous. And, one fall for me, I've got osteoporosis, I will be disabled. And so that creates a kind of fear and a timidity, and I stay at home more often rather than go for a walk. Imagine I'm in a nice neighborhood with streets, and, there are actual options. But imagine like my neighbors right here who are living in a high rise, and the road outside our building is a nightmare. There is no pretense of a sidewalk. So anybody walking takes their life in their hands. So elderly people become prisoners of their homes. And that is how we lose that whole population. We don't
Yeah.
see them out and about
Yeah.
because it's not easy for them. And we don't see people with small children walking happily because the kids are safe. We've got a
Yeah.
sidewalk, or it's okay. You don't see that. And so we're missing out on so many people in the world who don't think of themselves as disabled. They're able-bodied, they can manage in their own homes, but they can't go out. So I think that that's the first step to making the world, the whole world inclusive, is make it accessible, make it possible for everybody to come. And then those people will come up with all kinds of new solutions. Disabled people have so many ideas for how more creatively we could organize the world. Like think of all the things that we now take for granted that were created for disabled people. Text messaging. Who was it
Yeah.
created for? Deaf people. Everybody was using their phones and they couldn't do it. And so technology immediately to the rescue, and a whole new market invented text messaging for deaf people. Who doesn't text message? We're all using it every day, 100 times a day. Subtitles on movies. We can watch anything from anywhere in the world now. That was for deaf people. There are so many things that we take for granted as our
Yeah.
right because we're so up on technology. It's all created for disabled people. I mean, there are list after list of things. There's a tool, like kitchen tools that I love. It's called OXO. I don't know if you've ever seen the OXO brand, but it was invented by a husband and wife. One of them had arthritis and the other one was an engineer, and the two combined to create tools like a can opener, an ice cream scoop that have big handles that she could grip, and used effectively. The scissors, they are such fantastic. Everybody wants them. Like if you get used to OXO, that's the only brand you want. I have a melon scoop that's in OXO. I have the can opener. I have the ice cream scoop, of course. I have I can't remember what the other ones are, but they're like the big, thick black, and they've got this kind of ridge so that your hand doesn't slip. Everybody likes them, and you can use them in your left hand or your right hand.
Wow.
Works either way. It's just amazing. But that was for a person with a disability. And I mean, I'm blanking on all the other ones. There are so many that were like talking traffic lights.
Mm.
That, think about what a difference it makes when the traffic light, if you're driving and you see the number comes down, right? So
Yeah.
that you come up with the red light, and in the old days, we always thought if it was a red light, oh, this is broken. It's going on for so long. It can't be right. And you get more and more agitated. You see the timer and you immediately calm down. Okay, I
Yeah.
only have 59 more seconds to go. It's going to be
Yeah.
okay. Worry. That's what we do for kids with autism. We give them timers. We tell them, okay, this much more time, and then you go to the next thing. Visual cues are so important for people who have any kind of autism. And we all have a little touch of it. It's like we all get agitated if we don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so now, why do they give us all these announcements in airports? Just to let you know, we know you're still here. Don't worry. The flight is coming. Gate number, and they keep giving you cues. That is exactly how we work with our disabled kids. We taught it to the technology people to make it into a system. So that's how, when you start to realize those connections, you realize how much you benefited
Yeah.
from disability in your life, in
Yeah.
your world. And we just need more and more of that because we have so many problems to solve.
Yeah.
It's endless. And if we bring more people into the center, then we're going to hear from them. We're going to get their ideas and figure things out together.
Yeah, fascinating. This is so fascinating. And this journey of yours, Joe, this has been decades long. If you look back, not just at what you built, but what has it cost you? Has it cost you something? Like, does anything come up for you?
Hmm. Well, my other two children are living outside of India. That's a
Mm.
big cost. They both have two children each, and we see our grandchildren very infrequently. I always dreamed that I would be like down the street from my kids, and their children would come and go in our house. That's that's a tragedy in my life. I mean, I really love them so much, and I really miss them. Um, and now I'm kind of stuck in India. We never like saved enough money that we could afford to live in another country. Ravi is still an Indian citizen. He wouldn't be welcome, certainly in Donald Trump's America, and unlikely in England also. So that's a big, yeah. And I miss my family, my brothers and sisters, my parents. I did get my father to come and live with us after my mom died. He came with us for over a year, and that was really special for me. But I always thought I would be the one to take care of them until they died, and that didn't happen. So those kinds of things. That's
Yeah,
what I feel the loss is.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Every
Does
life
this,
got that.
yeah, does this kind of exhaust you, this special kind of loneliness, even though you're surrounded by people,
Mm.
does this get exhausting at times?
Sometimes, yeah, it does. It's a kind of never feeling completely at home in any one place. I don't feel at home in America anymore either. I think because I've gotten so used to the way of life in India, which is so dramatically different from the American way of life. When the kids came for the inauguration of the building just in March, and they were, just blown away by in our home, the kind of everything comes out. We have this wonderful woman who works with us, and she makes parathas hot and fresh. And they were like, oh, this is so incredible. And then later in the evening, Anna was saying, but the doorbell is ringing constantly. People are coming and going and coming. I couldn't deal with it. I just couldn't deal with it. To live with this much interruption, and you're never sure what's going to happen on a given day. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Are four people just going to arrive for tea out of nowhere and then stay for dinner and maybe stay the night? And it's like, oh, so it's a trade-off. And when I go to America, everything is so quiet and so different. I like it, but I also feel like the chaos and the kind of, there's something that I love here. And so I feel like I've kind of unfit myself from anywhere. I don't know what place I belong in for sure. Um, so that's that. But I mean, I guess every life you make choices and you just
Yeah.
live with
Yeah.
other people's choices.
Yeah. Yeah. And and also that you've been doing it for so long now, Joe. What has sustained you through it all? Especially, I
Hmm.
mean, it's also because I've read the book Moy Moy Circle. I'm, thinking of it as I speak, especially after Moy Moy died, I'm thinking that, have you ever thought what's the purpose of it all? Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? What has been that sustaining kind of a force in your life?
I think for me, it's always been the small encounters and interactions, and oddly, because they're usually in Hindi. And so I have these very precious relationships with some of my staff, with people on the street, chance encounters, people I don't know, I'll never meet again, talking to rickshaw drivers or to shopkeepers, and the exchanges are so banal. They're not like anything profound, but it's the ability to communicate with someone who doesn't expect you to be able to communicate with them. Like they don't ever expect that I'm going to speak Hindi. And the
Yeah.
pleasure I get from that is so ridiculous. It's like, I love that part. It's the same things. I make the same stupid jokes over and over, and people laugh and laugh. And they can't believe it. They bring other people out to talk to me. And when I go to a hotel and they're being very solemn and using their best English, and then I'll answer in Hindi, and they just can't get over it. And that never stops to amuse and delight me. So there's that. But other hand, I think what lately has really started to trouble me, and in a strange way, I've seen it in Ravi as well, which I had never expected from him, but the atmosphere of intolerance now in
Yeah.
India
Yeah.
has become such a burden for both of us. He, in all his life, I have never heard him say ever that he didn't want to live in India, but he's saying that now. Saying, I don't know, we've tried so hard. And Ravi has been a nation builder for 60 years. He's a lot older than me. Um, and for him, this is like heartbreaking to see
Yeah.
what yesterday's election results. You just see these wonderful people being poisoned by something that has nothing to do with religion.
Yeah.
They're just being used by people who want power, people who want more money, and they don't care who they roll over. And they don't care about this so-called Hindu population that they are catering to. They're just whipping them into a frenzy that I have never seen in real life. The people I talk to who are all BJP supporters, they're all Hindutva, this is our country, and what are these people doing here? In real life, day to day, one to one, they're so welcoming. They're so inclusive. I'm not a Hindu. I'm a Catholic. I'm foreigner. I speak funny Hindi, and they're so welcoming to me. I've never seen any evidence in real life, but in crowds, in mobs, oh my God, and it's so scary.
Yeah.
And you never know when it's going to turn and who it's going to be directed at. And, I have so many Muslim friends. I have so many Dalit friends. What is this country coming to? So that ways, you never feel at ease, really.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a world for everyone. And,
Yeah.
and we mean everyone, even the BJP people, them too. We have to learn how to live with each other and how to make it work, even with that desire for money and power. Even those people, they're people, and we have to figure out how to work with, calm them down a little bit.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I think it's a very sad reality that we are living in. And also, like, I'm, you're talking about change, you're talking about intolerance, you're talking about nation building. But I think it's also like I am more interested in knowing about organization building from your perspective. When you think about Latika, say many years from now, what do you hope remains at its core, even if everything else changes? Inside, around, everything else changes, but what remains at core of Latika?
The genuine acceptance of every person, no matter
Yeah.
who they are.
Yeah.
And I think that has a strong chance of continuing. I think the kind of, like, we've just moved into this building, and we decided, it was a big discussion about our values and, is this in keeping with what we believe? But we decided we would have a contractor who provides the guards at the gate and the cleaning crew. We only had 2 people in our previous setup, and here we have 10 because it's so gigantic. And we never had formal guards. We always had, people take turns. So the gardener would be at the gate sometimes. Sometimes the HR head would be at the gate. Sometimes the drivers would be at the gate. And we knew that a building of this size had to have more security. We have parking and vehicle maintenance to think about. We have to make sure the kids are safe, they're walking in, and that the cars are. So we decided we'd go with this company. And we really worried about it because we didn't want the company people to feel that they were separate from us,
Yeah.
and yet they are, because they're on a different payroll and they have different hours. And we have to have, some of these things have to happen around the clock. The equipment has to be serviced all the time. You've got to have 4 of these engineer type people who are maintaining massive equipment. We don't even know what it does. So we did that. But I talked to the staff beforehand. I went around in different groups and said, my worry about that we want the team that's coming in to feel they're part of our team, that they're not separate, and the first day when they came, I was really worried because they're so formal, especially the guards. They would stand there and they'd be really stern. And I would say, it's okay to smile. And just look really, really strict. And I know that's how they've been trained, because they have to present a persona that don't tangle with me, I'm in
Yeah.
charge here kind of thing. But kids and parents coming in, you don't need to tangle with anybody.
Yeah.
But what the staff reassured me and said, Didi, it's us,
Mm.
we've never allowed anybody to feel they're not part of us. And sure enough, I just saw them all sitting out here in the resource center having tea with our team. And, it's that kind of, that's what's going to make it live on. They're so friendly now. It took just about a week for them to
Yeah.
relax and feel that they're part of the gang. And eventually, my hope is that at least for the cleaning crew, we can hire them on our payroll. That the guards I worry about because it's an overnight shift also. If somebody calls in sick at 2 a.m., I'm not going to be able to get up and go down, man the gates. So, but these kind of compromises, I think will have to keep happening.
Yeah.
And we have to figure within our value system, within our philosophy, how do we accommodate and yet not give up what we believe in.
Yeah.
So I a lot of confidence though in the team that they'll be able to do this because they value it so much themselves. And so many of them have risen from very low level positions to very high positions now. And they don't forget that
Yeah.
there's somebody who he started as an attendant on the bus. He's now become a social worker and he's working with our lawyer, and they do all the legal services for families. And the change in his confidence and his sense of himself, and and nobody forgets that
Yeah.
I came in as an attendant on a bus, and now I'm dealing with people's legal issues, and I'm going into court, and I'm working with families who need to become guardians for their adult child. And so those kinds of things. We have a woman who grew up in a servant's quarter, who started as Moy Moy's babysitter, who's now the head of our school. And to see them getting their degrees and learning on the job and becoming more and more professional in there, and they'll forget where they came from, how they got there. And so those things I think will continue to
Yeah.
determine how long it goes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. And if you could sit beside your younger self, Joe, the one just beginning this journey, is there something you would tell
No,
her?
I don't give advice to very young people. I'm so far away from it now. I really, I think you just have to do what you do. And like if I had told myself, I told that young woman, it's all gonna be fine, would that have made me confident or cocky?
Hmm.
Money is gonna keep coming. You have no idea. People
Hmm.
will send you things. Like my favorite money story was but we were constantly having crises with funding, and I would literally not know where we were going to meet the payroll from. And we just hired a new accountant, and he came into the office and he said, Jody, I don't understand how we're going to do this. There's no money in the bank. And I said, we paid the salaries. And then he said, that's it. There's nothing else. And I said, it'll come, don't worry. He was brand new. He just left a good job to come and work with us for a little bit more than he was getting in the other job. And I could see his face. He was so scared. What have I done? Just joined this. They don't have any money. They gave me a different story when I joined. And so I used to do this a lot. I would write these letters to people that knew me and that believed in what we were doing, and they send us checks here and there. And I had just met Anuaga, do you know Anuaga? She
Yeah.
was, at the time, she was the head of Thermax and big philanthropist. And she had taken a liking to me after hearing me give a TED talk. She had invited me to her house. So we've become friends. And I wrote to her, and I knew she was not going to donate because she had told me right away that, my whole focus is Teach for India and Akanksha, and I don't donate to anybody else. So You want to be a friend? Know that. So I wrote to her and I said, I know you don't donate to anybody else, but we are in such a total crisis. I need 8 lakhs. And if even 1 lakh or 2 lakhs, you could make an exception for and give it to me, it would be so incredible, and I could sleep at night. I always made up these great stories. So she wrote back to me and she said, I've sent you a check for 8 lakhs.
Wow.
And I almost fell off the chair. I just couldn't believe it. And then she said, but I do want to raise a concern. How are you going to keep doing this? You can't run your organization this way. And I was laughing because I'd been running my organization that way for 50 years. So I knew you could. It was at a cost. I mean, I'd lost all this weight. I was getting whiter and whiter. But anyway, I said, yeah. She said, what is your plan? How are you going to sustain the organization?
Yeah.
So I wrote back and I gave her all the stuff that we were thinking about doing and planning. And I said, what I really dream of is if somebody could give me enough money to run the organization for a year, I would put systems in place and I would get this act together. The next thing that happened was so stunning. She wrote to me and she said, okay, check for 8 lakhs should have reached you by now. I'm sending you another check for 1 crore.
Wow.
That should be enough for your organization and for you to get your systems in place.
Wow.
And this is a one-time gift. Do not come back and ask me for anything more. I went out to Ashish, the accountant, and I said, Deka, okay. It's like, where have I come? This is a crazy place. She just said it would happen and it happened. And exactly, I mean, if I had told my younger self, that's all you'll have to do. I think, you have to have fear. You have to be worried. You have to have that anxiety that pushes you forward, that makes you learn new things, that makes you reach out to people and see what they're doing, see how they do it. I mean, what I did with that 1 crore, yes, we ran the organization for a long time based on that. But I took the DUSRA, DUSRA, they do executive education stuff. So I took that course. I hired a full-time fundraiser. We really started putting systems in place. She galvanized. And so, but I think if I had known that this kind of thing were possible, I don't know what that would have done for me as a young entrepreneur starting out. I think it's good to make lots of mistakes. And,
And
belief, I already had belief. So I would just say the same thing. Believe it's going to work out. But I wouldn't have wanted to give any specific advice. I think it comes from inside. And the person has to go through those tough times to really learn the lesson. You don't learn it from somebody telling you. It's hard knocks really that get it through you.
You know what I want to know, Joe? Did you go back to Anu?
Did I ever try again? Of course. Always. And she wouldn't give me another penny. And you're the only one who's ever asked me that. I'm like unteachable about some things. I still keep.
I love that. I love that.
But I love her so much. She's such a funny, and she's so clear about what she will do and what she will not do. And she has no bones about it. She just, she's great. And, I've learned a lot from her, watching the way she operates, the straightforwardness, the way she speaks, the way she cuts to the chase. She's just great. She's just great.
Yeah. You could very well be talking about yourself, Joe. I mean, I feel the same way about you. Talking to you, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you. Thank
Tell
you
me
for
about
being here.
you. I want to know something about you before you
Yeah.
cut to the end. Or you want to end it and then tell me
Yeah.
about yourself?
Let's do that.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. But thank you so much for your honesty and for your presence and, for your life itself that reminds us that sometimes love doesn't just hold, it builds. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been a real treat for me, and I've learned a couple of new things I'm going to mull over
Oh, wow.
in the conversation. I always learn something from the conversation.
Wow.
Thank you for your questions. You've been a really insightful, sensitive, and that sense of celebration that you have in life. I could see it on your face, and the kinds of questions you asked, such great follow-ons from things I said. I loved this interview.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. And to everyone listening, thank you for being
you.
here, for listening with us. If this conversation stayed with you, share it with someone who might need it. Follow Parenthood, subscribe, and leave us a review. Until next time, this is Neha signing off. Bye bye.